Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're winding down the week for pop theme, and we're going to be checking out one of the songs from the lower end of the poll. And as usual with every Thursday, it is randomly selected from the bottom end of the poll. So usually we're going to end up with some more interesting stuff that's usually a bit more on the fringe than some of the more popular stuff like we get at the beginning of the week. Today we're going to be checking out Nostalgia, but with an H after the G in Nostalgia. Interesting name. The song is called Cool for Chaos, and I mentioned yesterday that I was wanting to explore some older pop because a lot of what we had done was more recent, and there was definitely some trends existing between those songs that I explored in both the Steven Wilson and the 100 Gex song. So if you're interested on my thoughts on modern pop music so far, those are definitely the videos to watch. Stay for the analysis sections. This song comes from December 2012, which is when it was uploaded. I don't see any date of the actual song itself, maybe when the album was dropped, but the music video is from 2012, the end of 2012. So this one is almost a decade old. Not quite. We're going to see what's going on here. Much like everything, well, actually, I had heard of Churches, but I had never listened to their stuff, and we had checked out Steven Wilson before, but nothing in his pop library. But much like 100 Gex yesterday, Nostalgia is something I have never even heard of. I don't even know. So let's get into this. Okay, we got sort of like a pop ballad idea going on. Lots of tension though. Just alternating these chords. Interesting singing style. Sitting in this idea.
You shut my lips. You say, shove yourself down with, but wait, are you cool with chaos?
So that was unexpected. In fact, this whole thing so far is interesting.
Make up your mind. You're the buzzing fly on this white sail of mine. As the static in my stomach flips, you say, shove yourself down with, but wait, are you cool with chaos?
Lots of really interesting texture work being played around with on that held out note above the drums and piano. So far this piano part has appeared through the entire song, just kind of shifting from sort of a more anemic version of this the chordal work being done to a wider.
Clock tick. You say shove yourself down with, but wait, how you cool with chaos?
Got some really interesting ambient sounds going on. Some uncomfortable stuff going on. Okay, that is not what I was expecting from a 2012 pop song. So I can kind of see how this ended up on the pop poll. Um, we definitely have sort of a vulnerable female lead over a piano, which is sort of a pop ballad trope. Um, Even if we had replaced some of the highly dissonant electronic sounds from the heavier section and maybe replaced them with some violins that sort of fell within the chordal work, I think this could have ended up sounding a lot more like a traditional pop song. So, in that vein, I'd say it's certainly pop adjacent. Um, there's also a lot of texture work going on. Not so much at the beginning when we have the vocalist and the pianist sort of doing their duet, so to speak, but definitely after the scream when we enter into sort of the chaotic sections, we hear a lot of ambient sounds, tons of different kinds of ambient sounds, especially as we get closer to the end. It seems like every time we enter that section, we end up with more layers of the ambiance. Um, but even the first time, you can hear that the long held out note on top of the um, drums and piano that's going on in the first heavy section. It is so I think it is just one held out note that ends up getting modulated in a lot of different ways. Maybe it's a series of whole notes where the notes being played do move a little bit, but I'd still say a lot of the movement and change that we hear in it is more modulation work rather than actually playing different notes. And that does line up a bit with what we've been discussing this week, sort of part of the DNA of pop that I missed, which is texture play and texture dynamic. So, under both of those lenses, I could say that this is a pop adjacent song. However, the end result, when you take everything as a whole, I get more of a is this even a thing? A poppy post rock song? Like, what if pop through the lens of post rock? Um, we have a lot of the droning sounds. We have a lot of texture work and ambiance work, which actually, come to think of it, we don't see a lot of texture work in traditional rock and metal, but post rock does mess around with textures, especially that. Um, what did we check out during post rock week? It was a live video, two guys on guitar and a drummer. It was a live set. Was that Russian Circles? Hmm. I don't know that name. I I think I'm right, but I might be just off a little bit. They did a lot of texture work, and I think textures is something I'm gonna have to start paying attention to more because it's one of those things that were introduced in the wave of digital music. Not to say that you can't manipulate the way your sound is when we're dealing with acoustic instruments, but it's more minute, not as drastic, and also more difficult to find wide varieties. You can usually pull off a couple of different sounds, but not like you can. I mean, digital just opened the floodgates for it. Um, and with and when I say digital, I don't just mean um, like digital modifying with electronic music and samples and stuff like that. But even when we get into rock and metal with your stomp pads and your cabinets and amps, like you can really modulate the way that your guitar sounds. Yes, we have kind of narrowed down to a sort of small spectrum of what an distorted, overdriven guitar sounds like. We can make some really weird stuff out of amps and stuff like that. But the option is there, right? A lot of the move from acoustic into electric and digital allows us to change sounds in ways that I have not really had a lot of practice listening for. I tend to think about what is on the paper, even at the beginning of this little journey of critical reactions. Even thinking about some of the ways that tone and stuff play around, as far as rock and metal go, is something that I kind of had to lean into and really start to focus on because it's not something I'm used to thinking about. I think about the way music's written on paper, um, not so much how it is performed. And a lot of the rock bands may be sort of, in a word, boring as far as what's on the paper, but it's exciting when it's performed because of the ways that they're manipulating it and playing around with it and the way that it sounds and stuff like that. So, yeah, texture is definitely something that I have not had a lot of practice with, sort of analyzing and talking about. And this week has done a phenomenal job of pushing me outside of my comfort zone directly into textures and sort of talking about how the way or the sounds that are used to play the music greatly influence the song and can make a song that is rather simple on paper into a little bit more a complex idea that can actually be talked about. You may have noticed this week I have not really talked much about composition. A lot of the songs have been fairly simple, even this one included, especially this one. But I've still found things to talk about, and I feel like I am again a bit out of my comfort zone, but I hope I have not sort of bored anybody this week or have just been talking about stuff that I'm wrong about. If I have, please let me know. Like, dude, you said this, and I was just like way off. This none of this stuff is really my strong suit, and I'm really diving in and trying to apply sort of what I know and kind of translating that into how it can be used to talk about the stuff we've checked out this week, but also trying to learn on the fly. So it's been an interesting week for my old brain to check this stuff out. Um, but to look at the composition a little bit, the entire song is the piano bouncing between those two chordal ideas, and like that situation exists from start to finish. It is a four beat, maybe, maybe two bars at max, um, idea that is played for 4 minutes and 35 seconds. Now, fortunately, or unfortunately, it is paired only with the vocals during the spoken sections. Anytime that the singer is singing, it is singing against just the piano. And it does a fantastic job of creating sort of vulnerability and a ton of space. It is a very sparse instrumentation there. And it really allows, I've talked about this in the past, strong contrast with the more explosive sections. Having them go back and forth creates massive context for the bigger sections, and they feel bigger because of it. Um, but yeah, if you don't enjoy what's going on in that first verse, I doubt there's going to be much going on in the rest of the song because a lot of it is just the same idea with slight variations. Um, then we have that scream, which, golly, was not expecting that. I thought we were having a nice week off of harsh vocals, and somehow you guys snuck one in there. Um, but yeah, so we got the scream, and then the scream is sort of the indication that we're going into a big section, and the vocals, I believe, cut out at that point, and we end up with some more instrumentation. We have a very sparse drum track playing with the piano. The first time through, we end up with just a held out electronic tone that changes timbre and pitch through modulation. It is not immediate changes. They're very minimal, gradual, sort of changing over the entire section. And then all that fades out, and we go in for a second verse with another soft spoken section against a simple piano accompaniment. And this cycle just continues to go, except every time we get to the heavy section, we hear more layers, more ambient sounds, random scratches, and like nails on a chalkboard, I think. I don't know if that's exactly the sound, but that's sort of what that's the emotion I got out of it. Um, but yeah, each one gets more difficult to listen to every time we bring that heavy section around. There's more things in it that increase the tension. The entire song is tense. There's no release at all, other than the scream. I think actually, um, in that light, the scream is actually one of the better parts of the song. It comes out of nowhere for sure, and there's novelty in sort of the scare factor of it. It comes right after a super like quiet section, um, and it's on the last beat of that section. So you're not really expecting. You might be expecting something a little bigger on the downbeat of the next bar, but not on the last beat of that bar. So it's definitely designed to catch people off guard, but it also provides a sort of release for all that tension that's being built up. And then, of course, we have a constant release of tension. All of the dissonance, sort of, it's a push and pull, sort of, as far as where am I going with this? So push and pull as far as the tension goes. There's definitely a lot of cathartic release going on with the ambient noises and the very dissonant uh, electronic work that's going on. But at the same time, I also feel that it's cathartic in a sense. There is release despite it being constant tension, because it all builds up to the the piano loop where there is no tension release. And then, of course, that is the quiet section, and it goes into another scream. And scream is the big exhale. It is releasing all that tension that you've been building up, and you just get it out. And then you got the nice explosion, the explosive section. Um, so looking at it from that lens, I think it does a pretty good job of balancing sort of tension and dissonance without actually ever releasing that tension. Like I said, we don't really hear much chordal resolution. The whole song pretty much sits between two very tense chords that really, really want to be resolved and just never do. So, yeah. But this song doesn't play around with going back to what we've been exploring this week, where these pop songs are really utilizing a lot of different textures to sort of keep the listener on their toes, always switching things up. We don't see so much of that here. We definitely have some electronic samples going on, and it allows them to achieve sounds that would be rather difficult to pull off acoustically. Um, and it frees them up as far as what can be played, but they don't use that freedom to inject it with a different idea every couple of seconds. There's still only a handful of textures and timbres being utilized throughout this song. However, just that simple idea of having freedom of using digital, or having the freedom of using digital music, and creating stuff that's not easily created in the physical space, basically creating music that can't be created with physical instruments. I really like that angle of pop. It's something I've never really explored or thought about critically, but it is really cool that pop is a place where these sounds can come alive. It's just not sounds you're going to hear outside of digital music, and outside of digital instrumental music like EDM and electronic. Pop is really the only genre we have that embraces digital instrumentation. So yeah, my appreciation for pop has skyrocketed this week. I love pop, right? I It's not like I've coming in here as somebody who's hated it my whole life. I enjoy pop. We've talked about this several times. If you look back, I mean, you can't. It's dark. It's dark. um, if you go to rate your music and look for critical composer, I'll just link it in the description. You can check out my music library. I got some pop soundtracks in there, and if you go to my wish list, there are some pop albums on there. I like pop music. I listen to pop music all the time. I mean, I also have an 8-year-old daughter, so I'm kind of forced to listen to it. I can't really escape that, but I mean, I've enjoyed pop even before I was a father. It's Pop is good music. It's not necessarily complex or intricate, but I enjoy listening to it. And this is just increasing the my man. I look more fondly on pop after this because I see that a lot of it, even though it's not musically engaging, based on what could be written into sheet music, there's still a lot going on. Um, so yeah, those are my thoughts though. Hit me up. What do you guys think of Nostalgia's Cool for Chaos? Drop those ideas in the comments. And if you're a fan of Nostalgia, let me know what I should be checking out next. And if this is typical, does she always mesh like creepy, screamy pop ideas together? Or is this sort of a one-off, and it's Nostalgia, which makes me think it's sort of a group. Let me see if they have a personnel down here. They don't have a personnel. So yeah, is this the lead singer, or is Nostalgia a group of people? Anyways, though, when you're done commenting, if you could hit the description box, there's some links in there that you might be interested in, such as the Patreon or the Discord server. Below that, if you could like, subscribe, and ring the bell, all three of those things help out the channel. Otherwise, I'll be back here tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC, and hopefully you will too. Until next time, you guys take care of yourselves, keep being awesome, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.